first picked it up to do certain things. As an example, like for instance, I think Mario, you didn't use those. Like, but for Contra 3, you could aim, you could do different things. Yeah. If you held one, you could like sit still and shoot, which I'm a huge fan of, sitting still and shooting in 8 directions versus having to run forward. Metroid, you know, one of them lets you aim up and down in the diagonals. For F-Zero, I think you turn harder if you hit the direction. Yeah, but it didn't feel natural at first until now. Now it's a staple. Like anybody, now we have controllers with four triggers.
Right.
Which, man, that's a lot. It's a lot going on in the new controllers. There's a lot of buttons, man. There's a lot of buttons. But yeah, SNES, I would say is definitely one of the best that there is. It changed everything, right? Every controller is SNES with 2 extra triggers.
Yep.
Pretty much.
You got it.
All right, so I'm going to go into my number 3. This is not a nostalgia controller. It's actually super brand new. Corey talked about it before. I do have these. These are the Oculus Touch controllers. These right here, they fit in your hand better than anything ever created on Earth inside and outside of video games in general. When so just as an example, Chris, I handed these to Corey and I said, hey man, one of these days you're going to have to try these out. And he said, okay, cool. I said, they feel great. He put them in his hand and said, oh my God. Wow.
Right away.
Right away without playing a game. He didn't even play a game. So these controllers are designed, and this is why I was so excited for them over the Vive Wands was, they're designed to be in your hand in a resting position. Okay, so like if I take my hand out, my hand sits like this. And if I put my hand in the controller, it sits the same way. One major difference from your standard controller is that it's broken up, right? Kind of like the Switch. But there's 2 buttons on each side, like an A and B and an X and Y, as opposed to with a standard controller, you have A, B, X, Y for the right hand. There's 2 analog sticks, so it's still dual analog. The buttons here, I have triggers, and then I have what are called hand triggers on my middle fingers, and that's what you use to grab things. And that's the biggest difference from the Vive. With the Vive, you grab things with the triggers, and then they're kind of stuck to your hand. So you grab a gun, they're stuck to your hand, you shoot, and you press a face button to let it go. In this, you grab a gun and have to hold it with the hand trigger here. And then you can just drop the gun like you would. And it feels so good to do. And they are motion controllers, so if anybody, this is an Oculus Rift controller, so you can see your hands in the game. You can do gestures, you can point, thumbs up. The controller knows where your fingers are, even if you aren't pressing buttons. So if I take my thumbs off, I get a thumbs up. If I take this off, I get like points and all. I can open my hands up pretty good. So I think that these are definitely, especially just from comfortability, and I think these are the future, right? I think having your hands separate could be the future of controllers in general, and Nintendo's already doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Those are like kind of smallish, but it's the same concept. It's the same exact concept. So I think these are definitely worthy of being my number 3. Chris, what is your number 3?
I'm gonna go straight controller. PS2.
Okay.
But one of the best controllers there is. It fits great in your hand. It was like, it wasn't the first to have triggers, but it was definitely it worked so good. The analog was great, the D-pad was great. There's nothing wrong with the PS2 controller. And I think that's the reason why they just keep kind of building off of that. And now, they just keep going. We found the right controller, and let's just keep going forward. So there's nothing wrong with that controller. That's all there is. That's all there is to it.
So PS2 controllers, especially at the time, the DualShock. Mind you, they had DualShock for PS1. Mm-hmm. It was much heavier. They had the rumble and the dual analog, but no game really used it too well. But then it became staple FPS stuff. PS2, the DualShock 2 was fantastic, and I remember getting it, and it felt so light, which I don't actually like, but it was so light in comparison to the one before, and it was like sparkly. I think it had like sparkles on it. It's the same controller that they have now, so they use that basically for PS3. I think it was almost exactly the same minus the triggers. And PS4 again, it's almost identical. It's a little bit more sleek. I have one right here. it's a little bit more sleek, but yeah, those controllers are tried and true. The one problem I have, and a lot of people like them for fighting games, is they don't have corners. They don't have corners, and it's at least on the cross D-pads, you could hold both directions. I think a little easier because they're connected. Right. Okay. So the D-pad on the PlayStation ones are not connected, so it's trickier for me to get a corner. Like I like the OG Xbox pads, not the Dukes, but they released a smaller one called the Controller S, which had corners on the D-pad, which I thought was great. Unlike the 360, which was horrible. So yeah, I would say PS2 is definitely tried and true as far as a controller design goes. Cole, what do you got for number 3?
You already mentioned it, Dreamcast controller.
Okay.
All the points that you mentioned already, the one thing I want to add to it is, depending on the game, like you said, it can do different things. Something as simple as playing Madden. You can select your plays.
Fucking Madden. Yeah, I didn't mention it.
You can select your own plays by looking at your controller. So, usually in that game, hey, I can see you're picking one of 3 plays, like deep outs. Okay, I know you're going to do that. Now I do it on my controller and just added a whole extra element to the game.
Yeah, and one thing about Madden is even if you're Madden 2K, they have ways now where you can pick plays that aren't on the screen, right? But you still know the formation that I am in.
Right.
Where on Dreamcast, VMU play calling where you couldn't see the routes on that little screen. But that means you had to know your team and your plays.
Exactly.
So you had to know your team, which means that's just another level of depth. And you had no idea what I was doing. You had no idea. And on the baseball games, you could pitch. You could put where you want. Oh, my God. Dude, it was so good.
So cool.
It was so good. And no game since then has had that. And I guess they just kind of rendered it obsolete. Like, we don't need
You know what? And
we don't need it.
It's a shame, going back with, like the Wii. Like the gamepad.
Or Wii U, yeah.
With the Wii U, or what was it, using the GBA, with the link cords, you could have your own personal screen. But they never really took off from that. Look at all the hidden information that you can use having your own personal screen. But, still, I think the Dreamcast did it the best with the play call, hidden play calling.
I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah. All right, number 2s.
Number 2s for me. Number 2 was another recent addition, and it was so expensive, but I got it on sale because it came with Halo 5. So I basically got a game and this. This is the Xbox One Elite controller. This thing is the mother of all controllers, as far as I'm concerned. It's not my number 1. It isn't. For design purposes, but this thing is heavy. If you move the analog sticks versus any other dual analog pad, these things feel like they are oiled. That's how smooth it is. If I handed this to people who were skeptical about buying one, which you should be at $150.
Yeah.
You should be skeptical, right? I handed it to somebody and I said, feel the analog sticks, and immediately they are always oh my goodness. I can't believe how it feels. And it seems like something so simple. So simple, like analog sticks being smooth, but this is it's phenomenal. A couple extra features that are on this thing. You know what? I had my box. I might have my box here. I'm gonna check real quick, but I can still talk about it. The analog sticks come off. It comes with different ones, and they're just magnetic. So, bam, analog stick is off, pretty much. And you don't have to twist. There's no joints. So they'll never really get stale from you taking them on and off. Okay. Same thing goes for the D-pad. Just pops right off, and you can put on like it looks like a cross, right? Oh, it's actually being keyed out by my green screen. But you can just put a cross D-pad on there if you prefer it. I like the disc. Why? Because it has corners. The disc has corners, but it's indented with lines, right? So you can still have a tactile feeling of the different spots. It's not just like plain disc. Also, extra feature are trigger locks. So on the back, there's little switches, which are they're right here. Sorry for the people listening, you can't see it, but there's switches on the back, and that locks the trigger. So you only have to press them halfway down to get like your shots off. So when I
Yeah.
play Gears constantly, man, like if I'm using a pistol, you know, it's much faster to shoot that way versus doing a whole trigger pull. Not all games support it, but it is cool. And then the last feature is the paddles. So they're keyed out because of the green screen, but there's spots to put these little paddles, which I've been using really only for For Honor. And they go on the back, and there's your paddles. So you have 4 extra paddles. Now, these aren't extra buttons, but you map them to different things on the controller that you already have. So, for instance, For Honor, you play in the game with dual analog. Left stick is to move around. Right stick is to guard in certain positions, right? To do a guard break, you have to then take your thumb off and press X.
Mm-hmm.
I have X bound to the paddle. So I no longer have to take my thumb off my right stick to guard break, and Halo to like dash. So now I can run, jump, and shoot without having to take my hand off, press the A button. So
I think that's the best part of a controller.
Yeah, it's cool, and they are. If you have like all 4 paddles on and you don't use them, they are extremely intrusive to the game because you'll click them by mistake all the time. But to have them on one side for 2 specific uses is really, really good. So this is definitely my number 2. It really should be my number 1. I use it for everything. I use it for consoles, PC. I have it converted to use it on PS4 when I can. I only don't when I play online because there's no mic support for it. But for the most part, this thing is fantastic.
Nice.
Chris, what's your number 2?
Now, I've never used that controller, but I have to kind of agree that everyone says it is amazing. You know, like I've had it in my hand. It feels really, really well. It feels really good, you know. It's just really expensive. Like, but I guess you pay for what you get, you know.
Yeah. And if it's your main hobby, like my main hobby is gaming, right? So why not have the luxury of something really nice?
Yeah.
So it's just like buying an expensive guitar or, you know, an expensive piece of equipment for something else that you might do.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. All right, Chris, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is something that I bought when I had a PS2, but it was also used for the SNES and the Sega Saturn, which I never owned a Saturn. I'm pretty upset I never did. It was an arcade fight stick, but it had all of the buttons. You know, it had enough buttons for everything. It was the Psychopad KO.
The Psychopad KO. Okay.
Now, I bought it for the PlayStation because I wanted a fight stick for the PlayStation because I was really into Tekken and just a bunch of other games on there. So you have your 4 buttons for your face buttons, and you had 4 extra buttons for your your triggers, and then you had programmable macro buttons up top.
Wow.
Now, if you've played Tekken, you've played King, you know that King has like a link of moves that you can just, a bunch of moves that you can link together.
Right.
Well, the Psychopad, you just pressed one button.
And you were a chump.
And you destroyed everyone.
I kick you out of my house.
No, you sit there and you go crazy, but you're just holding that one button up top, and you hit some other buttons. And you're like, oh, man, you're so good. Man, I messed Kev up, our friend Kevin up, so many times because of this controller. It was so amazing.
I would be so upset if I found out that was the case.
Yeah, right.
See, but I would be, me being the fighting game player, I would be the guy like, yo, you're not beating me anyway. You know what I mean? And that would be my pride. Like, I'm going to beat you, even if it was once. Like, yo, you had this thing that allowed you to do chain grapples with King, and I still won. that means you're garbage.
Oh, yeah.
So I can't wait to put a picture up of that Psychopad KO. I'm very excited.
It had auto fire for each button, so you could toggle auto fire on and off. You can adjust the speed. So like if you wanted auto fire, you can have just have it one or one.
Okay.
You had it was able to like flip the controller too. So if you were, it was really smart. It was a really good controller for like fighting games. If you were macroing. So if you're on the one player side, you're on the left, and your macros are all set up, hit forward and A or whatever, and then you switch to this 2-player side, you can hit the flip button.
Wow. That's impressive.
It knew to turn, hitting right. It knew to turn to the left now because you were on the other side of the screen. Wow. Like, it was really, really smart.
That's impressive.
And it worked for, like I said, it worked for PlayStation 2. It worked for PlayStation. It worked for Sega, Saturn, and Super Nintendo. So I still had a Super Nintendo, so I was still able to use it for that, but not really that much.
Right.
So did it come with different plug adapters?
Yeah, the controller itself just was like, the big pad, and then it had 3 different plugs that you could plug into the back of it. The plug in. So it was really cool. You had to keep all 3 of them, and that wasn't that bad, I guess. But
Yeah.
But you had, like it was 4-3 systems, so it kind of justified. I don't remember how much it was. I remember it being expensive, but not like